In the US, there's strong tailwinds for the CNS, psychedelics and psychedelic adjacent industry. Eli Lilly, the largest and most valuable pharma company in the world, acquired a former peer company of ours, Beckley, for 3.8 billion all in. So that is very encouraging for us and validates what we're doing as a company.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Anthony Tennyson, the CEO of Solvonis Therapeutics. Anthony, good to speak with you this morning. You've raised £1.3 million. What are the key milestones the funding is designed to deliver?
Good to talk to you, Stephen. Yeah, we're really pleased. We successfully raised 1.3 million sterling overnight. And what that will enable us to achieve is it will enable us to add international trial sites to our lead program, SVN001, which we're targeting at severe alcohol use disorder for the UK and now also the EU market. It will enable us to continue the work to establish the scientific bridge between SVN002, which is our proprietary therapeutic for the treatment of moderate to severe alcohol use disorder for the US market. Will enable us to continue the work to establish the scientific bridge between that and the reference product, J&J's blockbuster Spravato. And lastly, Stephen, it will enable us to continue to work with the US Federal National Institute for Drug Abuse to develop a proprietary and novel treatment for methamphetamine and cocaine addiction, SVN015.
Starting with SVN001, what would adding EU sites to the phase 3 trial achieve, Anthony?
So we're in phase 3 for SVN001, which is a treatment for severe alcohol use disorder, which is the worst type of alcohol use disorder. The trial is in phase 3, being run in the UK public healthcare system in the NHS. Our intent is to continue to run that trial through to the end of phase 3, and at that stage seek partners or potentially launch it ourselves. We believe that by adding in EU sites and therefore EU data into the trial data, that would increase the probability of either a successful launch in select EU countries or territories, or indeed increase the attractiveness of SVN001 from a partnering opportunity. And so this raise enables us to explore and assess the requirements to add those international sites, subject to approval with our partners on the trial, the University of Exeter and the UK Department of Health.
SVN002 is moving towards a US IND and also phase 2B. What are the key remaining steps before you can move into that trial?
That's a great question. So our core purpose as a business is to develop novel therapeutics to treat high burden CNS disorders in addiction and psychiatric disorders. But everything that we do, we have a really, really clear focus on being a judicious use of capital. So to that end, what we are seeking to do with our secondary program, SVN002, is to repurpose Johnson & Johnson's Spravato, which is a blockbuster drug for treatment-resistant depression. It's a nasal spray of esketamine. What we're seeking to do is to repurpose that into an esketamine oral thin film for sublingual and buccal delivery in combination with psychosocial support for the treatment of moderate to severe AUD in the very large US addiction treatment market. In order to do that, we've met with the FDA, so it's the agency in the US, and they've agreed that we can do something called 505. We can cross-reference into Spravato through a 505(b)(2) pathway, which is a capital-efficient pathway. Once we establish the scientific bridge from esketamine being delivered intranasally versus sublingually. We're halfway through that program. We've established strong PK/PD data, so pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics data from our route of administration to J&J's route of administration. And we're now in discussions with the FDA to map out the final part of that program, which will be hopefully a small toxicology package. And once that work is completed, then we would seek to engage with the FDA and hopefully secure their support for a phase 2 program in the US, potentially even a phase 2B program. So the remaining work to do is to complete that discussions with the FDA and to undertake hopefully a small toxicology package and then present that information to the FDA to hopefully secure their approval for certainly a phase 2 program, but potentially a phase 2B trial.
Anthony, you mentioned the US National Institutes on Drug Abuse now advancing SVN015. What could the next stage of evaluation tell you about the drug's potential?
Yeah, so SVN015 is our proprietary selective serotonin and dopamine reuptake inhibitor at which we're targeting for methamphetamine and cocaine addiction. We're very lucky with the US Federal Institute, NIDA are currently funding some preclinical activity for that program. We had initial positive cardio screening data and off-target screening data, and so we're now progressing into further studies with NIDA, which NIDA are funding, hopefully to then progress into animal efficacy studies. And I think, again, per our core strategy of being very efficient in how we deploy capital, it's really encouraging that NIDA are funding all that activity themselves, whilst we remain and own, while we own or retain all the ownership of the IP.
We've seen significant big pharma activity in neuropsychiatry recently, including transactions that like J&J, AbbVie, Otsuka, and Eli Lilly. What does that tell you about the sector in which Solvonis is operating, Anthony?
I think what we can gather from that is that in the US, there's strong tailwinds for the CNS psychedelics and psychedelic adjacent industry. Eli Lilly, the largest and most valuable pharma company in the world, acquired a former peer company of ours, Beckley, for 3.8 billion all in. So that is very encouraging for us and validates what we're doing as a company, but also should be encouraging for our shareholders. And I think that's demonstrated by the raise that we successfully completed overnight. And noteworthy in that is that we brought on a new UK institutional investor onto our shareholder register. So I believe it's positive, and certainly I think the markets are certainly recognizing that now.
Anthony, congratulations on that raise. I hope you'll continue to keep us updated.
I will happily do so, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Anthony Tennyson, the CEO of Solvonis Therapeutics.